I'm like, pockets. I'm like, they've been hearing me complain about the song for the last 7 weeks.
Has it only been 7 days? That's unbelievable.
It is, yeah. They never let me ride in it. You have to be like, yeah, you gotta be like, I think they started it. Somebody else gets the job done here, yeah. Yeah, you gotta I don't mind you until so yeah, basically it's just like
That makes sense. Yeah, no. Hey. I exactly too. us now.
I feel everyone when I got this jacket was so uncomfortable. Now I'm just regretting not having it.
Heads up, see. Where's it coming from? By the flag. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone. I am so happy to be back in Edmonton today. It's great to be joined by so many hardworking and passionate Canadians. And I want to thank my friend and the candidate for Edmonton Millwoods, Tim Uppel. Thanks very much, Tim, for being here. I'm looking forward to having you back in Ottawa. As Canadians, we are the most fortunate people in the world. Our country's potential is as vast as the distance between our shores. Throughout our history, our leaders have brought people together from all walks of life, from all around the world, in pursuit of something bigger than ourselves. Leaders like Sir John A. Macdonald, whose vision of a country that spanned from the Atlantic to the Pacific led to the Canadian Pacific Railway. Like Louis Saint Laurent, whose vision of a more engaged, more united nation led to the St. Lawrence Seaway and the Trans-Canada Highway. Like John Diefenbaker, whose vision of a Canada of the North led to the first all-weather road across the Arctic Circle. These were leaders who could see beyond what was there to what there could be. Leaders who weren't afraid to turn to Canadians and say, "Follow me. The journey will be difficult, but the destination will be worth it." And in doing so, they created a country of possibility and opportunity, where someone like me, who grew up in a middle-class family, can go on to run to be Prime Minister. Ces premiers ministres étaient des leaders qui n'avaient pas peur de regarder les Canadiens et les Canadiennes dans les yeux et leur dire « Suivez-moi ». Ça va être difficile, mais le jeu en vaut la chandelle. Ils ont bâti un pays de possibilités où quelqu'un comme moi, qui a grandi dans une famille de la classe moyenne, peut se présenter pour être Premier ministre. Justin Trudeau lacks the leadership and vision of those who came before him. He pursues short-sighted policies for short-term political gains, pitting region against region, province against province, Canadian against Canadian. Since taking office, Justin Trudeau has repeatedly attacked Canada's energy sector and the men and women who work in it. There's Bill C-69, the No More Pipelines bill. Then the shipping ban, Bill C-48. He continues to turn a blind eye as foreign special interests smear our energy sector, which adheres to the highest environmental standards in the world. The results have been as depressing as they have been predictable. 2 major pipelines canceled, Trans Mountain on life support. Investment has left the country, and hundreds of thousands of hardworking people have lost their jobs. Families across the country are hurting, sometimes desperately so, and Trudeau just won't listen. Last December, just down the road from here in Nisku, I met some of the unemployed oil patch workers. It was one of the most emotional experiences in my life. What I heard was heartbreaking. Story after story about hardworking Canadians losing their good-paying jobs and struggling to provide for their families. The pain in their voice was clear, as was the hurt in their eyes. Albertans and all Canadians deserve better. It's time for a government that understands that we're in this together, that Canada works better when we work together, and that our natural resources can be a force for good. Which brings me to why I'm here today. To reaffirm my commitment that a new Conservative government will create a national energy corridor to carry Canadian energy and resources from coast to coast. It will move oil, gas, hydro, electricity, telecommunications, and accommodate other linear infrastructure. It will be a transnational corridor that will generate economic and social benefits for the entire country. A national energy corridor will provide Quebec with opportunities to export its hydroelectricity to new markets. It will provide rural communities with opportunities to connect to vital telecommunication infrastructure. It will provide economic opportunities for Indigenous communities along the route. Je suis ici aujourd'hui pour réaffirmer un engagement précédent. Un nouveau gouvernement conservateur va construire un corridor énergétique national pour transporter l'énergie et les ressources naturelles canadiennes d'un océan à l'autre. Il servira à transporter du pétrole, du gaz, de l'hydroélectricité, à construire des lignes de câbles de télécommunications et beaucoup d'autres choses. Ce sera un corridor transnational qui va générer des avantages économiques et sociaux pour tout le pays. Grâce à lui, le Québec pourra exporter son hydroélectricité sur de nouveaux marchés. Il va permettre aux collectivités rurales d'être connectées à une infrastructure de télécommunications vitale. Il va offrir des possibilités économiques aux communautés autochtones. With a single corridor, industry wouldn't need to submit complicated route proposals for every new project. With a single corridor, we could minimize environmental impacts, lower the costs of environmental assessments without sacrificing quality, increase certainty for investors, get critical projects built, and create good-paying jobs. A new Conservative government will appoint a blue ribbon task force to provide recommendations within 6 months of its establishment on how best to proceed. We will then work with provinces and Indigenous peoples who would both share in the prosperity this project would provide to realize this vital coast-to-coast link. Now, there will be those who say it can't be done, who say it's simply too ambitious. But Canadians have heard that before, and each and every time, through our determination and our ingenuity, we have proven the naysayers wrong. Canada has spent 4 years being a country of no under Justin Trudeau. That needs to change. As Canadians, we need to return to the optimism and vision of great Canadians like Macdonald, Saint Laurent, and Diefenbaker. We need to start dreaming big again, and we need to start dreaming together. We need to start building a stronger, more united country, worthy of those who came before us and that our children and grandchildren deserve. We need to move from no to yes. Yes to more responsible resource exploration. Yes to getting our energy to market. Yes to more better paying jobs. Yes to new infrastructure projects that shorten commute times and keep our economy moving. And yes to being a country where big things are possible and where every Canadian, whether here in Edmonton or Vancouver or Quebec City or St. John's, has the opportunity to benefit from a strong energy sector. This election is about the future of Canada and the future of your family. And the choice is between a government that makes life more expensive and a new Conservative government that will support economic opportunities for all Canadians. A new Conservative government that will make life more affordable. And a new Conservative government that will live within its means, put more money in your pockets so that you can get ahead. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Happy to take your questions.
Good morning, Mr. Scheer. Joyce Napier, CTV. You say your plan is ambitious, and we know how difficult it is to build a pipeline. How are you going to get the province to agree with you on this energy corridor?
Well, you're absolutely right. It has become very difficult to get pipelines built in this country. It wasn't always the case. There are thousands of kilometers of pipeline all across Canada, in every province. And I am convinced that with this idea, we can address some of the concerns that Indigenous communities have, that provinces may have, and do the important environmental assessments all up front, so that when project proponents come along, the heavy lifting has been done, and they can do what they've always done, that is get pipelines built with private sector money, not with taxpayers' money. Oui. Euh, Je suis convaincu qu'on peut faire le travail difficile et on peut adresser les enjeux environnementaux, les besoins des communautés autochtones et assurer que toutes les provinces vont avoir une situation qui peut profiter de cette corridor. Et le secteur privé peut faire ce qu'il a toujours fait, et ça c'est construire les grands projets avec l'argent du secteur privé, pas l'argent des contribuables.
What would be your plan for boil water advisories in Indigenous communities?
Well, the plan will be to ensure that there's both funding available for the capital requirements and ongoing funding to ensure maintenance and training for people on reserve to be able to make sure that those facilities are working. So we'll have more to say on that throughout the campaign, but that is something that will be very important to a Conservative government under my leadership. Thank you.
Kelly Malone, the Canadian Press. You'll be meeting with Mr. Kenney today, but in Ontario, you'd made no effort to meet with the Premier there. What was the decision to meet with Mr. Kenney, and will you be meeting with other Conservative premiers across the country during the campaign?
Jason Kenney offered to meet up with me today. I've known him for almost 20 years. We're very good friends, and I was excited to be able to attend an event together today. I've been meeting with Conservatives and Canadians all across the country who are tired of Justin Trudeau's high taxes, massive deficits, and embarrassing track record on the world stage. I've met with provincial leaders in Newfoundland and New Brunswick and people from all across the country supporting our great candidates, and will continue to do so throughout this campaign. Oui, alors j'ai hâte à participer à un événement aujourd'hui avec M. Kenney. Nous étions des amis pour presque 20 ans et c'est quelqu'un qui savent très bien l'impact les décisions de Justin Trudeau et le gouvernement libéral. If there's one province that has been hit hardest by Justin Trudeau's record of failure and attack on the energy sector, it is Alberta. If there's one province that knows all too well the devastating impacts of things like Bill C-69, like the carbon tax, it is Alberta. And so I'm very excited to appear with Mr. Kenney later on today. S'il y a une province qui sait très très bien les impacts désastreux de Justin Trudeau, c'est l'Alberta. Ils savent l'impact du projet de loi C-69, la taxe sur le carbone. Alors, j'ai hâte à participer avec M. Kenney aujourd'hui.
People in Ontario are also worried about their economy. Does that mean you'll be meeting with Mr. Ford at some point?
You're quite right that people in Ontario are very worried about the impacts of the carbon tax. They're very worried about how the manufacturing sector in Ontario has been hit by the energy sector's troubles as well. And so I have no doubt that the people in Ontario are looking forward to a new Conservative government as well.
Louis Blouin de Radio-Canada. Est-ce que vous pensez que ça ne peut pas être dommageable pour votre image de vous présenter, de faire campagne avec M. Kenney aujourd'hui, considérant qu'il est une figure qui représente l'industrie pétrolière? On sait que le projet de pétrole n'est pas populaire du tout au Québec. Le gouvernement du Québec a des positions très opposées à celles de M. Kenney. Est-ce que ça ne peut pas faire mal à votre image, ça?
Je crois que les Québécois et Québécoises savent que c'est mieux d'avoir le pétrole canadien au lieu de le pétrole qui vient des États-Unis. Je ne veux pas de continuer la situation où l'argent des consommateurs du Québec vont à l'économie de Donald Trump. Il n'y a aucun bon sens. J'ai fait mon choix. Je préfère le pétrole de chez nous.
Monsieur Scheer, qu'est-ce que vous...
Sure, I know that Quebecers understand that it's better to buy Canadian energy, that it makes no sense that they're spending their consumer dollar on energy that's coming from the United States. I've made my choice. I support Canadian energy. I support Canadian energy workers. I think the world needs more Canadian energy. I think Canada needs more Canadian energy, and this energy corridor will help us accomplish exactly that.
Sur le référendum sur la péréquation que M. Kenney veut faire pour avoir une formule qui est plus juste pour l'Alberta, est-ce que vous seriez prêt à revoir la formule de péréquation, quitte à désavantager le Québec?
Mais le gouvernement libéral a fermé la porte. Il a créé une formule pour les prochains 5 ans. La situation meilleure pour l'Alberta, pour tout le Canada, c'est d'avoir de permettre la construction de les grands projets d'énergie, comme l'annonce que j'ai faite aujourd'hui. Ça, c'est la meilleure façon d'assurer que toutes les provinces peuvent profiter de la croissance économique qui vient avec le secteur énergétique. Et je sais, j'ai parlé avec M. Legault, il n'est pas fier de le fait que le Québec a besoin de la péréquation et je suis prêt à travailler avec lui pour, euh, pour créer les conditions pour la croissance économique aussi. Et ça, c'est une autre partie de cette corridor énergétique qui va permettre le Québec de protéger plus de son énergie hydroélectrique.
Sur la formule comme telle.
Mais comme je dis, le gouvernement libéral a fermé la porte sur ça. La formule va rester pour 5 ans. Mais avec un corridor énergétique, avec la construction de les nouveaux pipelines, ça va aider à la croissance économique d'Alberta et ça, c'est une situation tellement mieux qu'aujourd'hui.
Just in English, please.
Yeah, so the Liberal government has closed the door on the equalization formula, locking it in for another 5 years. I believe that with announcements like this on the energy corridor, we can get big projects built again. We can get those pipelines built. We can get the energy sector back on its feet, and Alberta will benefit greatly from that, as will all provinces.
Good morning, Christy Kirkup from the Globe and Mail. Our newspaper has reported that it was not able to find any evidence that you were indeed a licensed insurance broker. Just for clarity's sake, were you ever a licensed insurance broker, and if so, for how long?
I did receive my accreditation under the Canadian Accredited Insurance Broker Program, and as my staff mentioned to your newspaper, I left the insurance office before the licensing process was finalized.
One thing that's been pointed out is that your website, though, does say that you are a licensed broker. And I know during the campaign you've criticized Liberal leader Justin Trudeau for not being as advertised. Does this mean that you are not as advertised if that is what it says on your website?
No, as I said, I did receive my accreditation through the program.
Good morning, Mr. Scheer, JP Tasker, CBC News. At virtually every campaign stop we've been on, there's been environmental activists protesting you. You haven't spoken to any of them that I've seen. Is there a reason why you're not engaging with these climate activists? Is there a reason why you haven't gone up to them to make your pitch on the environment?
Well, I've engaged with Canadians all across this country. I've been attending public events and holding events that are open to the public. I have actually engaged with people who do come to my events. I was in Quebec for an event and sat down with people who were concerned about a number of issues. So I'm always ready to engage with people when they have something to say or a question. I can understand the frustration of people who are concerned about the climate because of the failure of Justin Trudeau's handling of the environment. When we look at the fact that his carbon tax is not working, we're falling further and further away from our targets, but the cost of living is getting more and more expensive. I can understand their frustration.
But there seems to be activists at every turn that were on this campaign. Why do you think that they make a choice to come to your campaign events?
Well, I note that they are also attending other leaders' events. The activists that I'm here today supporting are the activists who want the energy sector back on its feet, the people here who want to be able to work. I have met with so many people who had the insult added to the injury of watching their company go bankrupt and selling the equipment to American companies to build projects in the U.S. And the devastation that has had on families in Alberta, in Saskatchewan, and in other provinces. Those are the people that I am going to be a champion for, and this announcement is how we're going to get this done.
En français.
En français, j'ai engagé avec beaucoup des gens qui viennent à nos événements. Nous avons eu des événements publics et j'ai été à des autres événements. Je suis toujours prêt à discuter les enjeux avec tout le monde. Et il y a des fois que j'ai eu des réunions avec des gens qui manifestaient autour de nos événements aussi.
John Iveson, National Post. Do you have a preferred route for this corridor? There's obviously only a certain number of places it can end up on either coast, and it has to go through Quebec.
Yeah, well, obviously the exact specific location will be determined by this blue ribbon panel and after extensive consultations with Indigenous communities and with premiers. Obviously, it will need to get to ports. We would envisage this to go through areas that would ultimately allow us to export our energy around the world. So that would be the ultimate endpoint. How we get there will leave to the experts, the scientists, the geologists, and the Indigenous leaders.
You've obviously got to buy the land along the right of way. Is there any estimate on how much it's going to cost?
That's a very good point because it's not necessarily about buying the land. It's about creating the regulatory approvals process so that, as is the case already with pipelines being constructed, it's about establishing the regulatory process that allows the private sector proponents to do what they've always done in this country. As I said, the exact specifics and exactly where the route will go will be determined after these extensive consultations are done. But ultimately, we would envisage this terminating in ports that will allow us to ship our energy around the world so that more Canadians, more countries have access to Canadian energy so they don't have to purchase oil and gas from countries with terrible records on the environment, with terrible records for human rights, and the world can have access to more Canadian energy.
I want to ask you, because the pipeline is not, of course, only something you have to negotiate with provinces. You would also presumably have to expropriate private property to build an energy corridor across Canada. I know there are people in Alberta who are upset, feel hard done by, their energy is landlocked and can't get out. But are you not concerned that by taking land, expropriating land, exposing people to risk of spills and so on, when most of the benefits will come here, you're just transferring resentment from Alberta to other parts of Canada over this issue?
Not at all. And people here aren't just feeling hard done by. They're feeling devastated. Many of them have lost their homes. They've been working for companies that have existed for decades that have gone bankrupt because there's no confidence that we can get things built in this country again. And as I said, there are hundreds of thousands of kilometers of pipeline now in Canada. This does not need to be done in terms of expropriating large amounts of land. It's about the regulatory process, addressing the environmental concerns, and getting the Indigenous consultations done properly. And in terms of benefiting from it, there's no doubt that the people who have been laid off here in Alberta and Saskatchewan will benefit when we get these projects back up and running again. But the benefits of Western Canadian oil and gas is shared with all Canadians. It benefits every province in this country. Refinery jobs in Eastern Canada, manufacturing jobs in Ontario and Quebec, the revenue that goes into the federal government that allows the federal government to support provincial programs for health and education in every country. This is not a zero-sum game, and this is the problem with Justin Trudeau's attitude. He thinks that it's pitting region against region, and he thinks the way to go is to divide Canadians. My vision is to unite Canadians and promote the benefits of responsible resource extraction in Western Canada that benefits every single Canadian. C'est clair que les bénéfices du secteur énergétique ici en Alberta et en Saskatchewan a des bénéfices pour tous les Canadiens. Les emplois dans les raffineries de l'Est du Canada, les emplois dans le secteur de manufacturier dans Ontario et Québec, et aussi les revenus qui vient au gouvernement fédéral qui va aux les services provinciaux comme la santé et l'éducation. Alors, tous les Canadiens profitent de l'extraction de nos ressources naturelles.
Okay, I've got to ask you about Brexit. Not for the first time, I know. But back in 2016, you wrote that it was simplistic and wrong to think that Brexit would bring political or economic uncertainty. You encouraged the British to vote to leave the European Union. Clearly took sides on that issue. So I'm not asking about whether you support their right to choose. We know you do. I'm asking about you personally. What lessons, if any, have you taken from the last 3 years yourself personally?
Well, as you mentioned, at the time, I did publish that article. It was soon after Justin Trudeau took a side in the conversation as well. I'm focused here during this campaign on issues that matter to Canadians, that impact Canadians' daily life, making life more affordable, reducing the cost of living, putting more money back in their pockets, bringing in things like tax credits for kids' sports, and eliminating the carbon tax. That's my focus this campaign.
Dylan Short, Edmonton Journal and Sun. Yesterday we saw thousands of Canadians march and strike for the environment and for climate, and now today you're announcing a national energy corridor. How do you plan to balance both concerns?
Well, exactly because this corridor will allow the federal government to take care of and address environmental concerns up front. What's happening right now in the energy sector is that there's no confidence in the approvals process. Companies are not willing to put in the hundreds of millions of dollars only to have the Liberal government move the goalposts and change the conditions halfway through the process. This will create certainty. This will allow the federal government, working with provinces, to identify the environmental challenges that have to be addressed by project proponents, and then those proponents will have to meet those standards in order for projects to proceed. So this is a balanced approach that achieves the dual goals of protecting the environment and allowing Canada to extract its natural resources.
And do you have a timeline for when you hope to have this implemented by?
Well, as I said, this will be an ambitious project that will require a lot of consultation. I believe that can be done in the medium term. Obviously, we will wait to see what the recommendations are from this panel, but I do believe that we can start working on this within this first mandate and ultimately get to the point where big projects can get built again in this country.
Jordan Osted, CBC Edmonton. Just wondering, you mentioned kind of balancing these different competing objectives here, but how do you plan to meet the 2030 Paris climate goals that you said that your government would meet when independent analysts say that your climate plan wouldn't actually reduce emissions enough to meet those goals?
Well, I obviously reject those statements. Our environmental plan is the most comprehensive policy ever put forward by a party in opposition. Over 50 specific concrete proposals that will help Canada reduce emissions, not just here at home, but around the world. And that is the part that Justin Trudeau is missing in all of this. We could shut everything down tomorrow morning. We could tools down, power down, everybody stop doing everything. And within a matter of weeks, China, India, Indonesia would replace all those emissions. He's thinking too narrowly. It's easy for him to walk in parades or to make announcements with no details. But our plan allows Canada to export more of what we can produce here at a lower rate of emissions. For example, in Canada, we can produce aluminum thanks to our hydroelectricity and technological advancements at a fraction of the emissions for that same unit of production in China. It doesn't make sense to chase those jobs and investment here from Canada, only to see production move to other countries where emissions will actually go up. So by exporting our clean technology, our advancements like carbon capture, we can do more to lower global emissions. And after all, isn't that the point? Isn't the point for there to be fewer molecules of CO2 in the atmosphere? And so that's what our plan does.
En français aussi.
Oui. Mais c'est clair que notre plan pour l'environnement, c'est le plan le plus compréhensif proposé par une parti en opposition dans l'histoire du Canada. Il y a plus de 50 mesures spécifiques qui vont réduire les émissions ici au Canada, mais dans un contexte global aussi. Et ça, c'est la chose que Justin Trudeau manque. Il ne concentre pas sur les impacts de réduire les émissions avec l'exploitation de l'énergie plus propre et les avancements technologiques.
And just to be clear, though, can you point to one example in your plan that would actually push us towards reducing those emission targets past Mr. Trudeau's plan that the government currently has laid out and isn't meeting those 2030 targets?
Well, sure. We made the announcement just a few days ago about our green home renovation tax credit, which will lead to lower energy bills for Canadians, making life more affordable and less energy being consumed. That's estimated to be at least 9 megatons of CO2 reductions. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Thanks very much.